Hello, nerds. We are switching things up, going crazy. It's just such a nice day. I wanted to sit outside and record, so we're doing the news outside. I got this really cool new bench that you can't see. Well, not new, but redone bench that you can't see that I'm sitting on. I just had to take advantage. It was so beautiful. But this is Generally Nerdy, and the show is your week in Nerdom. I am your host, Dustin, and we are talking about all of the nerdy things, from music to video games and comic books and TV and everything in between, movies, all of that jazz. Let's hit up the intro so we can jump into all of the news. Hello, nerds. Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. This is your week in Generally Nerdy. No real housekeeping, just a reminder, Salt Lake Comic-Con FanX 2019 is happening in like 2 weeks, so in 2 weeks we will be only doing one episode. My day job schedule is going to be a little weird, so that might actually make one episode for that week and the week following, but I'll keep you posted as that happens. But that's all the housekeeping. We've got so much to cover. Let's just jump right into the news, and first thing in news is music. In music, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about that's coming out, or that they're releasing singles for, and so on and so on. So first off, we're talking about Opeth. We've talked about the new album that they're putting out in, I'm going to mispronounce the name because it's in Latin, and my Latin sucks, but In Cauda Venenum is still set to release on September 27th, and they released another single that's called Dignity, and link to this and everything down in the description. But man, I love Opeth. There is just nothing. So, a friend of mine once, when Mastodon put out their last record, a friend of mine said, yeah, I'll listen to it eventually, because I know it's going to be amazing, and they're not really, they're not surprising me in that everything they put out is awesome. Well, I feel like the same thing can be applied to Opeth, because their worst album is about an 8 on a scale of 10 when you compare it to everybody else's stuff. So, this album looks like it's not going to be an 8 comparatively. This album looks like it's going to be a freaking 11. Oh my god. So yeah, definitely go listen to that song. It is 6 minutes long, so it's on the longer side of things, but check it out. It's worth it. Let's have a conversation, whether you or not you agree with me, down in the comments. Next, we're talking about a band that I honestly thought broke up. I was kind of big on them for a while. They put out this record called 13 Ways to Bleed on Stage, and for you older, heavy rockers, you already know the band that we're talking about. It is Cold. For most of you, you probably remember the song Stupid Girl, not the garbage song Stupid Girl, but the other one that was written by Rivers Cuomo, actually, from Weezer, and written for the guys in Cold, or the folks in Cold, I guess. Their bass player is female, so you can't say they're all guys. Anyway, so they are putting out a new album. They just signed to Napalm. They just signed to Napalm Records. So Nuclear Blast, Napalm, kind of a similar vein. So I'm sorry for the brain fart, but that's significant in that when I first heard that they were putting out a new album on this record label, I assumed that it was going to be heavier, because if you're on Napalm, then that kind of goes hand in hand. They put out heavy music. That is what that record label does. And then I listened to the first 2 tracks, the first 2 singles from this record. So the name of the record, before we get too far into this, is The Things We Can't Stop. It is due out September 13th, which is kind of appropriate because, again, Cold kind of revolve around the number 13. You know, they had the album 13 Ways to Bleed on Stage. They use darker imagery and so on and so forth, so that kind of makes sense. I believe that's a Friday even, so Friday the 13th in September, which is kind of awesome. But, so they've got that going, and the 2 singles, the first single was a song called Shine, and the second single that they just released is The Devil We Know. So Shine is all about bullying, and really the content of these songs is exactly exactly kind of what you would be expecting from Cold, which I think is kind of awesome that they're signed to this crazy big metal label and they're still doing exactly what they've always done. It's not to say that they're following some sort of pattern. They're not making the same songs over and over again, but it definitely sounds like Cold, and that's commendable. That they didn't try and affect a new sound just because they're on this new record label. So awesome. If you are a fan of that kind of stuff, it is more alt rock, not really heavy. Definitely check those out. It's, again, links to both of those are down in the description. And then just to break up the monotony a little bit, we're not talking about new music, we're talking about potential new music. Cory Taylor, vocalist from Slipknot and Stone Sour, is talking to Trunk Music, I believe, or Trunk something, one of the Sirius XM radio stations that I feel like is more hip-hop oriented than anything, but I don't listen to the satellite radio, so I don't know. But he was talking on, it was a Sirius XM radio station, and they were talking to him about music, and he said that he is seriously considering, it still is not set that it's going to happen, but he said he is considering a solo record. That he, if it were to happen, he would start working on it in 2021, because obviously he's got like 2 years worth of touring to do with Slipknot right now, and then very probably they will start working on more Stone Sour material, so exactly where he would have the time to do a solo record is kind of the big issue. So not set in stone, but very interesting to think about, because in a lot of respects the Stone Sour material is considered by most people to be his solo material, though what he said in the interview and what he has said about potentially doing something like that in the past is either he would go singer-songwriter style, so it would be basically him and an acoustic guitar, or the more intriguing option, he was thinking of putting together like a jazz quartet and doing a dark jazz record, which would be kind of amazing. I'm not even gonna lie. But again, that is very much speculative. That is very much speculative at this moment. So we're gonna move to our last piece, and it is another new song. This one's actually off of a re-release of a record we've already talked about. August 16th, so just a few days ago, Atreyu re-released their In Our Wake album with some bonus material. There are 7 new tracks. Not all new songs, just like different versions of songs that are already on the record, as well as like 2 or 3 new actual tracks. And of them is a song called Generation, which they just released the video for. Again, link in the description. This one's not one of the more solid Atreyu tunes. Just kind of meh, which kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I thought Atreyu was over their meh stage, because So Others May Live, or Long Live rather, and In Our Wake, Ashes of the Wake, it's not Lamb of God, Long Live and In Our Wake are both returned to form in such an amazing way that I was really hoping everything they were going to be putting out from here on out was going to be fantastic, but everything can't be a winner, right? So, video's kind of goofy, but that just kind of showcases the personalities of the band more than anything. But again, link in the description, go check it out. Let's have a conversation about it down in the comments. And now let's move on to our next section. And on to TV news. And we don't have a whole lot of time, but we do have a whole lot of stuff to talk about. So we're just going to jump right in, head first, all of those cliches and doing the things and the stuff. And our first bit is real quick, actually. It's a follow-up from last episode's Lobo update, in that showrunner Cam Welsh is kind of sort of confirming what we were talking about with Lobo, that it's not completely dead. You can check the link in the description. It'll take you to his Twitter account where he says it. And again, very likely they're just going to take this over to DC Universe or potentially HBO Max. Next, we're talking about the Watchmen over on HBO. Showrunner Damon Lindelof was talking to TV Insider and said something that really is interesting, in that he said that the original comic book, not the movie, but the original comic book, is going to be canon in the universe that he is expanding. He is not creating this universe, he is very clear to say, but that kind of flies in the face of a couple of things that they've said in the past, in that this was going to be a remix of that story, and it's going to take some elements, but that just means that those Rorschachs that we've been getting in the trailers are potentially, and this is my conjecture, this is not possible spoiler because nobody knows what's going to happen yet, but those Rorschachs we've been seeing in the trailers are very likely like disciples of Rorschach, in that somebody found his book and they're trying to let the truth be known and set the world straight. Oh, just the incredible possibilities there are really, really fun to let your imagination run with, so let's do that. Next, we're talking about Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. Director Rick, I'm going to mispronounce this last name, and I apologize in advance, Rick Famuyiwa, is going to come back for Season 2, which production for Season 2 begins on October 7th. That story again, The Mandalorian got renewed for Season 2 before Season 1 even aired. And not just renewed, but they're going into production before Season 1 airs. So they're putting a lot of money into this. This is a big investment for Disney. Casting announcement for Cowboy Bebop. Elena Satine has been cast in the new live-action Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, and let the outrage on the internet begin. And our final piece for TV is Legends of Tomorrow, a show we don't always talk about, but it is always somewhere in the back burner. Brendan Routh and Courtney Ford, who play the Atom and Nora Dark on the series respectively, are being written out. And this is not because the actors are looking to leave. This is because the showrunner and the producers and everything are just like, okay, you guys are done, goodbye. And to not exactly the most enthusiastic reception, but I can see the creativity behind that. And now we're moving on to movies, and to start movies, we have two big announcements that were seriously announced shortly after finishing filming the last episode, and one of them actually was right after I uploaded the last episode, but first off is SpiderMan, and this is one that continues to evolve as I was doing the research for this and everything's going on, but as you all well know, Spider-Man is no longer going to be part of the MCU because Disney got a little too big for their britches. They were getting 5% of the first day sales, so premiere day sales, Disney got 5% of all of the box office, and they had all of the merchandising rights. And that just wasn't enough for Disney. They also did not have to put up any money for the production of the movies. That was all on Sony. So what Disney said is, hey, we're going to help you make these movies, and then you're going to give us 50% of all the box office. I could not find whether or not that affected the merchandising rights or not, but that is effectively what they came to him. And Sony said, we did all right with Venom, so no, thanks. And that's kind of where it stood for a minute. And then this morning, I found two updates. The first of which being that industry analysts were somehow blaming the demise of Dark Phoenix for this, because part of the negotiations put Kevin Feige over not putting Kevin Feige into Spider-Man, into the production staff of Spider-Man. So that was a big thing that Sony was like, well, if we don't get Kevin Feige, then why are we here? Because Kevin Feige was going to have to focus on bringing the X-Men and such in, so therefore they're blaming Dark Phoenix for this demise. And then, right before going to print or film or whatever, I found another update that says, well, just this morning, Marvel has approached Sony with another offer. And it sounds like Sony might be interested. So as this gets developed even further, we will be talking about it. The details of this new offer were not available because it is from a less than reliable source, but it is still an interesting thing that might keep Spider-Man in the MCU. So we will be talking about it more as it comes along. Next big thing is The Matrix. We are getting a fourth Matrix movie. We've talked about on the show a couple of times about the reboot that they were trying to do, the Lega sequel as it were, or even potentially it was a prequel starring Michael B. Jordan, depending on which rumor was going to be confirmed, and none of them actually are true, because one of the Wachowskis, Lana Wachowski, who, if you're playing the home game, not to be insensitive or anything, but it is a little bit confusing because for a long time they were Larry and Andy, now they're Lana and Lily. So if you are confused, Lana was born Larry, so Lana used to be Larry and is now Lana. Lana Wachowski has confirmed that she will be doing the show. She will be doing this movie by herself, but Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves have both already signed on. As far as any more casting or anything like that, nothing is really known. The original set designer is coming back, the original production designer is coming back, but that's all production stuff, that's all behind the camera. As far as in front of the camera, no idea if Lawrence Fishburne's going to be involved, but as those get developed, again, we will be talking about them right here on the show. And then our last bits are pretty quick ones. So Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends just confirmed that John Carpenter will be back to score the movies, though nothing has been said yet about him producing the movies like he did with the previous ones, so that's very interesting. We got our reveal for Bond 25. The name of the movie is going to be No Time to Die. Interesting. We also got a synopsis that says that, like we already knew, that Bond has retired at the beginning of this movie, so the 007 title has been given to somebody else, presumably, though that's not explicitly laid out in the synopsis. That is kind of presumed. And then our last piece of news is a movie called Alien Xmas, or Alien Christmas, if you will. It's based on a book written by the Chiodo brothers, who actually did portions of the movie Elf as well as Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Very strange connection there. But they are teaming up with Jon Favreau, who is fresh off of The Mandalorian, to make this children's book that they wrote, again, Alien Xmas, into a feature-length film. Which sounds like so much fun when you consider who those people are. So, yeah, very interesting Christmas movie is on its way. So let's talk about gaming news. And gaming news, we've got, again, this is a overblown episode. We've got so much stuff going on. First up is, this is something that actually, if you are a fan of the channel, you probably were expecting this. I am not going to be doing a breakdown of the new DLC trailer for Mortal Kombat 11. It is only a minute long. It got spoiled. I didn't even realize it got spoiled for me, so it wouldn't be an honest reaction video, and there's nothing to break down because none of it is gameplay. Aside from, and we're just going to touch on this real quick, aside from the Joker's face, kind of very strange. They're working with a new character model, and the new character model needs some work. Let's just leave it at that. So again, that's all we're saying about the Mortal Kombat DLC until we get gameplay footage, and then I will do an analysis. We'll do a reaction if it doesn't get spoiled. But honestly, like I've said before, new Mortal Kombat trailers, if it releases at a time where I can do a reaction video, being as like I'm at home and not somewhere that, like editing these videos or whatever, then I can do a proper reaction. Otherwise, they're just breakdowns. Anyway, so that's all we're talking about Mortal Kombat 11. Next up, we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Bleh, first day with the new tongue, I apologize. So CD Projekt Red, the company that is giving us this game, it has they've never said explicitly that they're working on multiplayer, or that they're going to include multiplayer, rather. But they have hinted at the fact that we could get multiplayer in 2077, though they are focusing on the single-player experience, which in this day and age is kind of a novel idea. And it seems that now that multiplayer that we may possibly have potentially been put in the game is not going to be in, at least not at launch. It's not going to be an option when the game launches. During an interview at Gamescom, the senior concept artist, Marte Jonkers, I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, but Swedish is definitely not in my lexicon. So he was talking about how just everything they've been doing, all of the R&D that they've been doing for multiplayer has not been coming up proper. There's nothing that is saying, yes, this is a thing that has to be in the game, which is actually kind of reassuring that they're not just going to rush any element of this game. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and it's not going in. So that's not closing the door on the multiplayer option in the future going forward. It's just at launch, we're not going to have multiplayer. Very potentially, throughout the continued support of the game, we might get multiplayer, but that will be an additional DLC down the road. Our last two pieces for gaming for this episode are trailers. So real quick, right? First of which being the new trailer for Predator Hunting Grounds. And this game looks like the Predator game that we should have gotten probably a generation ago. But it is going to be releasing next year on the PlayStation 4, only on the PlayStation 4, which kind of sucks. But it looks just like the Predator game you've always wanted. You get to play as a Predator potentially. You also get to be a Marine, soldier for hire. It's a group of mercenaries, it looks like, and it looks like it's modeled similarly to the very first movie, where it's a group of Marine types who get dropped into the jungle and have to take out bad guys, and then also learn that they have to avoid the Predator. Check out the link in the description to watch that trailer. But between this and Death Stranding, I'm seriously considering getting a PlayStation 4, which is kind of a not preconceived transition into our last set of trailers, I guess. Gamescom, we talked last episode about the Gamescom video that Hideo Kojima brought that showed us that you can weaponize your urine, which is weird to begin with. And then we got these other 3 trailers at Gamescom, and I just have no idea. Link to the 3 trailers are all down in the description, and see if you can piece something together for this, because I got nothing. And now, let's bring it to an end with comic books. We only have 2 pieces in comic books for this episode. First of which being Marvel is doing a 2099 event. It is going to basically be Spider-Man books, because Spider-Man 2099 is where that universe, I guess you could call it, where that universe started. So, starting with Amazing Spider-Man number 33, it is going to begin this event, and we're going to get a few books. It's going to span quite a few tie-ins and Spider-Man books and Spider-Man 2099 books, and we're going to expand the world of 2099, which, you know me, is always a good thing. I really love universe expansion stuff, so definitely going to be on board with this. If anything crazy comes from this, we will definitely be talking about it here on the channel. The first of which is that they're adding a couple of characters to the 2099 universe. Those 2 being Venom and Conan the Barbarian. So how exactly that's going to happen still remains to be seen, but definitely on top of it. And then our last piece in comic books and for the episode is G. Willow Wilson has announced that she will be she will be leaving the Wonder Woman books, and she will be starting a, quote, bucket list opportunity, I believe is how she put it. And there's going to be a drastic split in the comic book community, because a lot of people really don't like what G. Willow Wilson does for DC, but a lot of people really, really do. I'm not a Wonder Woman reader. I haven't read any of the Wonder Woman books. I have heard some really great stuff about them, but I have also heard some really mixed, to be nice, stuff about them. So, not entirely sure where I fall on this one, but I'm going to pass it off to you guys. How do you feel about G. Willow heading out and starting a new project? Let's have that conversation down in the comments. And that is the end of the episode. So what did I miss, guys? What should I talk in the next one? Let me know in the comments below. If, though, you want to go deeper into the conversation, jump over to the website, generallynerdy.net. Jump over to the Patreon, patreon.com/generallynerdy. If you're new to this channel, click the subscribe button. If you liked the episode, click the like button. If you're falling behind on your nerd news and you want to catch up, then you can click or tap that box right there to the left of my face to do that. But before we click boxes and stuff, guys, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.